Welcome to the first episode of Art Matters with Wayne Quackenbush. My name is Wayne Quackenbush, and I'm the president of the Portsmouth Arts Guild, which is a gallery located in beautiful downtown Portsmouth, Rhode Island. I also have a small gallery space in Newport where I show work for local artists. Figured I'd start out today with the mission statement of the Portsmouth Arts Guild. And their mission is to provide a welcoming and nurturing environment for the visual and performing arts in Portsmouth and the surrounding area, to celebrate, share, and promote the talents and skills of artists of all ages and abilities, and to contribute to the cultural enrichment of the community through exhibitions, performances, and education. And what I'd like to do is to introduce to the community some of the people that are associated with the Guild and or are artists in Aquidneck Island and the surrounding areas. Now the Guild has members from as far away as Narragansett, Rhode Island, Providence, Fairhaven, New Bedford, Massachusetts, Fall River, Massachusetts. So when they use the term center, it means that it's a big area. And with me today is my intern, Michael Roche, who I've been working with through the East Bay Met School in Newport for the past couple of years. And Michael is going to be the director and crew member of this program. But when we first started brainstorming the idea of this, he said, I want to be on the show. So I said, okay, Michael, we'll put you on the show. And then when we got down to actually shooting the show, he said, I'm going to be on the show? And I said, yeah, you said you wanted to be on the show. So here he is. Michael is studying drawing and photography and video, and he ultimately would like to be a director. He's a little daunted by the education that he will have to get and the number of years that will take, but I think that he's very talented. And Michael, did you want to say a few words about what your goals are and what you've been working on?
Well, what my goals are is to become a director, and that requires 6 years of college to get my master's degree. And already past 2 years at my school, the Met School, I've been working on projects, film projects and also photography projects with my art, especially the one I did last year based on my comic book. I brought my characters to life with photography. I find that very accomplished over the year, because this is not with a digital camera, this is with 35mm film and communicating with people around me, and that's hard.
So basically what you did was this past year you storyboarded this film that you want to make, and you shot stills for the movie, and you used the stills to promote the movie. So that involved you buying costumes, hiring actors, scouting locations, and you did all of this, and you're just going to be a junior this year in school. So you did all this in your sophomore year, which is a pretty big accomplishment. So obviously with the show you have opportunity to access equipment that you haven't had before. So are you excited about that?
I am very excited. This is, I feel like the Grinch when he smiles, the big smirk.
Okay, and so you're pretty happy with the way things are going, and you're looking forward to further episodes as we progress.
Yes.
And so have you met any interesting artists in your time working with me?
Yes, I have. I met Mario, which he draws comic books, but based on DC, and he's very good at it. And I wish he works with DC or Marvel, because he's talented. Mm-hmm. And I learned a lot, especially with inking and all the little easy ways of correcting a mistake.
Great. So this was our introduction. Well, here we are at Art Matters, and we just happen to have an artist named Art, who is based in Newport. He's a contractor. And Arthur, how did you develop your interest in art and painting?
I think I've been fortunate enough to have a mom who drew when I grew up and went to art school. So my whole life I was just surrounded by it, and sort of just a thing that happened, like breakfast or dinner. It was dealing with art, I guess you'd say.
So there were paintings all over the house?
Oh, weird paintings.
And I know that
very weird. She does some classical art, like lighthouses, stuff that you can sell. And then there was her abstract phase where, at a young age, I was very confused, obviously. I did not understand what just squares and things going together like that were. But, I was lucky. She was going to school when I was a kid, so I actually spent a lot of time at the URI art campus just sitting in classes. It would have been odd if I was in a class there and there was a child my age today, but when I was a kid, it seemed normal.
Back in those days, you could actually smoke during class.
Oh, yeah. I think at 5 years old, I might have had a cigarette back in the day at that time. And it was acceptable.
Did you go to art school yourself?
I did. I actually ended up going to URI. I got a BFA there and had a great time. That's actually where the first time I started to paint. Everything before that was very markers, pencils, and I had a few art teachers there that sort of pushed me into the painting. Bob Dilworth and
I know Bob.
Brian O'Malley. Mm-hmm. And they sort of helped me get outside of the box I was sort of trying to push myself into,
Now, we were talking a little earlier about how you're actually bi-coastal as an artist too. Even though you said you didn't produce any artwork in California, you had some school experience out there too.
Yeah, I did. I went to a technical school where I believe the only way to make money was to do it with computers and art at the time, and I realized that's not what I wanted to be doing. I was too separated. I needed to be more attached to my art and not sit there and make a wireframe for 3 days for a lamp to go in the background of a picture. It wasn't something that I felt too separated from it.
So you were born and raised in Rhode Island, and I guess you'd consider yourself a Newporter?
Yeah, I consider myself a Newporter. I was born here, but I don't like to think of myself too small of an islander. I like to think, unlike most of us, I've been other places. I lived in Florida for a few years, and like you said, California. So I think they've all influenced me in some way or another.
Now, as we'll see shortly, your artwork is pretty unique, and I wanted to know, where. Let's go back to that age-old question. Where do you get your ideas? What are your influences?
It's probably hard to say. I've grown up, as you know, buying comics and watching cartoons and loving graffiti, and I think all those have sort of got you. Today we're just attacked with images, branding and images, and I think that's obviously worked its way into my art. I love colors and that bright stuff,
So would you consider that you're kind of recycling the stuff that finds its way into your brain and you're kind of spewing it out on a canvas?
Yeah, I do. A lot of it is, it's obviously art's very selfish, and I make the things that I think that I would want to have on my wall. So what I want to have on my wall is robots and stickers and things that I grew up with. I loved growing up, and to me, probably one of the best graphics that you saw as a kid was from skateboarding designs and stuff. That was very influential when you were younger.
Did you used to skateboard, or do you?
I tried. I don't know if anyone would ever say I was really a skateboarder, but I got from point A to B with a few falls in between. But yeah, I definitely did. I still have a few sitting on the walls today.
Now, of course, I know you as a comic book fan, and a lot of your work reflects that kind of influence. But do you have any favorite artists that are either comic book artists or more traditional?
Yeah, it's tough. I love graffiti artists, and there's not very many that are too known for doing it. You just sort of follow who's out there putting their stuff on the internet, and you just follow it. And comic book wise, it's interesting because I'm probably the least artsy type of person. I hide my brush strokes. I hide all of that, which everyone who does painting says that's what you don't do. And so but I love comic book artists that are artsy. Like I love Ashley Wood, Temple Smith. I love another guy who draws fat lines, very modern street stuff. Is that Scotty Young, who I love.
Yes.
I mean, I love to have a sense of humor in there as well with it. So.
Now, do you want to show us some of your work? Because I'm sure that people are quite interested in seeing what you brought today.
Well, I don't know if they're going to be that interested, but we'll see where
I
this
know
goes.
I am,
Wayne.
because
You want me to pop
obviously-
one up here?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Perfect.
So what is this one called?
This one is called The Abominable, which is given the name from all the Warner Brother cartoons where he should have taken a left at Albuquerque, basically. And I mean, all of them are basically just hiding bits of my branding sort of in it.
I also know that you're kind of outing your secret identity, because all art fans know you as Logo,
Exactly.
but you're actually Arthur Mead.
It depends
So
on what
this is
day.
kind of like a big reveal here.
Yes, yeah. Very
The
big.
secret behind
Very
Logo is
Yeah.
Arthur Mead. And now let's see if we could do a sentence without using the word art at all.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
what's the next painting?
Very similar, a robot or monster. Popbot. I guess I called this one. The names
Okay.
sort of come at the end,
And he's thinking about a juicy death there. I can see that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Again, my name, all my social security information is on
I'm
there.
seeing molecules and maybe some kind of bacteria, maybe some kind of nanotechnology happening.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is reflected like I see in street art. So, I mean, it's, the thing about people who do street art, they're ruthless. They don't like it, they go over it. So I like to have that layers of as if you found it out
But
there.
this is also not what you typically would see from McQuinnick Island.
No. I mean, there's not a single lighthouse or sailboat in one of these paintings,
Now, go on to the next one.
I'll pull this guy over here.
When
He's
I
a little.
first met you, when we started working together with you as an artist, you were going through a pretty heavy zombie phase.
Yes,
But
yes.
I think that maybe you got zombied out a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think pop culture gave us some good zombie things. It's pretty hard to just keep putting it in there,
And because, how can you add to the conversation when it's all around you?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But hey, I'm glad that they became popular.
Yeah.
This is one
So this
called
is-
Adam and Steve.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wasn't this a wedding gift or a
This one wasn't,
It was kind of inspired by
This was, I don't know what happened. I honestly don't know what
definitely
inspires it. It's
heading
really-
more. This is more
a little
recent,
too much spare time,
right?
huh?
Isn't this more recent? It seems like you're going much more into the organic here.
Yeah, this is not too, it's still got my numbers and stuff hidden in it, my tag and stuff, but,
So we don't really want to talk about where you've actually tagged stuff in real life.
Honestly, as a person who's owned property now
And you're responsible.
and responsible, I've found that it's a lot easier to put things on canvas than it is on the street. It's
Yeah.
just
Well, I like the sense of containment too. Obviously this would look great as a mural, but you could actually own one of these and put it in your home.
well. Again, I only do things that I really want to put on my own walls, and I find that's a tough thing in someone's house to figure out what's going to take up wall space.
So you've never actually taken over somebody's living room and done a mural.
No.
Though I do know someone who acquired a bunch of your work and decorated their whole house with it.
Yes.
So that was pretty cool.
Every once in a while, I actually decided to put the businessman hat on.
And you have a patron, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've definitely been lucky.
So did you bring more? Or
Yeah, I have a few more odd
Excellent.
ones. It's mostly robots again.
There's definitely nothing wrong with robots. When I look at your stuff, I see a little bit of Vaughn Baudet. Do you remember? Are you familiar with him? I think we've talked about that before.
I think so,
He used to
actually.
specialize
Is
in
that
robots.
the 60s-ish guy?
He was underground cartoonist that used to do robots in a post-apocalyptic landscape, and your stuff reminds me of that a little bit. I see the corner of Spring and K Street there.
Yeah,
That's
you gotta keep it local, you know.
It's very local.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, this kind of...
Actually, I'm the world's worst speller, so you can see that it says it's on the corner of Sping.
Oh, Rings.
Rings
Ring
and
Street.
K, because sometimes when you're writing things,
Well,
just
you know,
forget.
in the post-literate society, spelling has gone downhill, so
You're
this
right.
kind of reflects that in your vision of the possible future.
Put it in cursive, no one would have read
Exactly.
it. And I have one more if you want to see
Yes,
it.
yes.
This one again is another robot, because that's sort of what I do, if it's not a monster.
Yeah,
or a
I mean,
robot.
you know, this is so layered and it looks like airbrush. How do you get the tight borders around stuff?
I mean, a lot of it is, you know, I use is just. I mean, it really depends. As I've drawn more, I've sort of been more willing to put different things into a painting, you know, and make it more. I used to be very focused on just using one medium through something and being like, this is all acrylic. But now I use acrylic, oil pens. You know, I'll go in with spray paint. I think some of them I even put foil leaf in and stuff, you know. So most of them have become multimedia, you know, just to get the result of what I want.
It looks like you're actually building the painting, which, I mean, you are a contractor in your real life, too.
Yes,
So,
definitely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I find it, the levels, I'm always trying to make it seem like there's depth in them.
Now, you've shown around the island and you've worked with the Portsmouth Arts Guild. I know we have a show coming up called the Greater Fall River Art Exchange. We're going to take over the gallery there. Are you planning to put work in that show?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, I definitely am. I am. Wayne.
So we'll see you there, and geez, thanks for coming. I mean, this is great that we get to see this, and
Thanks
that's
for
it.
having me.
I'd like to introduce Casey Weibust, an artist and teacher, educator, art coordinator, curator that I've known for the past 10 years or so. Can it have been that long?
I think so.
And she was recently elected to the board of directors at the Portsmouth Arts Guild, so we're expecting big things and lots of energy. Now, Casey, how did you develop an interest in art?
I feel like when I was growing up, it was just kind of, I wasn't necessarily always the kid in the art class or the kid that people would necessarily think to be an artist. Though when I think back, I do know I was always in plays as a child. I was always like the lead role in plays in the Jamestown Community Theater, and my brother was always, he had all these masks, and he was always, you know, we were always putting on little shows in our house. We always had a big costume box in the middle of our house that I was always dressing up, and I feel like my mom was always gardening, my father was always playing music, so I feel like I grew up just in this arts kind of atmosphere, even though I wasn't really didn't start creating art that was meaningful to me until probably I was about 15. And that was just really me just doodling in class and realizing that it helped me to focus, and then also just it kind of helped me to meditate in a way. I was always a very busy kid, so I think it helped me to kind of focus and relax. And from there on, it was art for me.
Well, I know that your mom was a teacher, so was she an English teacher?
Yeah, she was a language arts teacher
arts
for
teacher.
over 28 years in Jamestown.
Right, and I know your brother's a musician.
He is.
You're a musician, kind of.
Sort of.
I know you sing, and you have a pretty avid history as kind of a skate punk, right? I mean, that's
Correct.
probably not the...
I mean, I skated, and I went to a lot of shows, and I I still kind of skateboard. I need to get back into it, but definitely always been part of a skate culture. My uncle and Sid of Water Brothers. My uncle actually co-owned Water Brothers with Sid, so my brother and I both kind of grew up in this Newport skateboard
So
kind of.
beach and skate parks and all that good stuff. I mean,
Correct.
water and tarmac and one of the first pieces of artwork that I acquired from you, and I still have it, was like a section of a telephone pole that you had painted a skeleton on or something like that. I mean, you're always doing interesting things with objects, and I know we're going to get to that shortly.
A collector.
So I know we talked about your family as influences, but I also know that when I first met you and we collaborated on a show in Newport, you were heavily into fairy tales, and I remember talking to you about those old German silent movies and talk a little bit about what inspires you. And I know that things have been kind of accumulating and growing over the years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant, I feel like a lot of artists, or a lot of people say that the hardest thing for them is to come up with the subject of what they're going to create. But for me, I find that it's more that I have this constant, my mind is constantly coming up with ideas and evolving. But I don't necessarily always have the time to evolve it fast enough. So a
indeed.
lot of what I do is collect items, collecting a lot of items. Okay, I'm going to do this with this, I'm going to do that with that. So I've become kind of, like an arts hoarder, where I just collect as many materials as I can with the intention to build something over time, which, it's a long process, but I see a lot of, instead of just 2D, I'm seeing 3D coming into play. I'm seeing animation. My brother's an animator. I'm seeing a lot of collaborations to kind of bring my work alive. The fairy tales came from growing up in the woods with a brook in the backyard of my house and just constantly, playing in fern fields, and just kind of my whole childhood was kind of a fairy tale. In a sense, and a lot of there was all these like really. I grew up the north end of Jamestown, which is not built up at all. So it's got a lot of woods and old houses that are falling apart. And my friends and I would always kind of say, "Oh, I bet a witch lives in there," and we were always kind of like imagining like what these broken down houses, or even the nicer houses that were just kind of old gingerbread houses. We'd sometimes like knock on the doors and hope that we would like run into someone that was maybe like a witch, or we were always kind of just our imaginations. My imagination's always been really really large.
So you want to show us some of your artwork? I know you brought up.
Sure.
I mean, I'm curious because
Probably brought too much stuff.
Well,
like I said, I collect a lot of things. You had talked a bit about, when we first met, I had been creating, I had already kind of created work that was based off of film. I was really interested in the artist. I was always into Francisco Goya, but also there's this book called The Gothic Nightmares, and a lot of the artists in this book, it was just like old artists from like the 1800s and whatnot. They would go to plays and draw from the sets. So they would, kind of like they would go to like the Macbeth play, and that was what they'd do for entertainment, and that would be their inspiration, and they would create drawings based off of that.
and Goya was a printmaker, and I know you do a lot of printmaking.
Right, a lot of this work is prints. So when I first met Wayne, I'd already done some drawings that were just based off of like, random clippings that I'd, just from looking at houses, and this is one of them. This is kind of like what I was explaining in my neighborhood that would have been like a house that would have been on the street that we would have thought maybe a witch lived in, or so Wayne had mentioned to me the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and at that time, and when I watched the film, it was incredible how much the architecture in the film resembled work that I was already doing.
This actually looks like the production sketches for the film that they did. I mean, it was uncanny when I first saw this.
Yeah, and that was really amazing for me because it was something that I was already kind of trying to do and doing, and it was just, my goal really was to stop only creating work based on the film, but to, develop my own style based on my inspirations from film. So, then I created a work. This is a print. It's a monoprint. So basically you paint on plexiglass and then print from the glass on a big etching press, which is 2 rollers. And then this piece is also inspired. This is after I met Wayne and actually watched The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. And this is actually the plate that you would ink up and print from. And basically it's all just textures. The ink holds on to the textures based on how much texture there is. The ink's going to hold wherever there's texture. And this is definitely incredibly inspired by The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and the sets, and just kind of the building structure, and just that it's
Those little German villages,
Little German villages.
There's no right angles anywhere, and everything looks like it's just about to fall
fall
over.
down. Yep, exactly. So that was, and it's it's also kind of hits a little bit upon Tim Burton and Dr. Seuss, which I read every Dr. Seuss book growing up, and that was also very influential for me. I can keep showing
Keep going
stuff.
because we're actually we're getting kind
All right.
of close to the end, so we need to get as many of these things
So
in.
then this was also inspired by a film, Big Fish, where it's the old witch in the house. So you can see this common theme of witches and houses. And this was actually inspired by the witch lifting her eye patch to show how you were going to pass away in the future. So basically we have a friend named John Catula who we used to work with at the Met School, and he had a show when he was turning 70, 100 Ways an Old Artist Can Die.
Yep.
And we all had to create work that was based off of this theme. And so there's, as part of it, there was a photographer that took pictures of myself and another artist kind of like killing John in the old, what is that painting?
I think it was The Death of Marat.
Yeah, The Death of Marat.
Yeah,
So we dressed up in those
he's
costumes.
in a bathtub and the 2 ladies are stabbing him.
Correct.
There's nothing dark about any of this,
No,
right?
very friendly, very friendly subject matter. So my idea was that I took that image and I shrunk it down, and it's called sheen collé in the printmaking world, but basically essentially glued it into the piece. So it's as if she's lifting her eye patch to see into how John Catula was going to pass away as an old
And
artist.
just to say, John Catula is still with us, so.
Yes, he
yeah.
is.
And in fact, he's had quite a life since then, so.
Yes.
Life doesn't end at 70s, folks.
But whoever wins, that's whoever wins gets, I think, $2,000.
Okay, we've got time for one more quick one.
Sure. So let's see. I guess the last one I'll show is kind of more where I'm at now, and it's my Frankensister series.
And you're marketing a line of those dolls, right?
Yeah. So I don't have any dolls right now because they just seem to fall into the hands of people very quickly. And even though I have a hard time parting with them, if it's the right person, I like to make sure they have them. So this is going to be, I'm trying to work, my usual Frankensisters are only like this big, but I'm working towards kind of building it stronger. And I'm kind of thinking about the Frankenstein theme of like kind of taking apart other dolls to create my own dolls. And the Frankensister is basically inspired by Wednesday Addams and Frankenstein, and just the whole kind of a little bit of an odd character who, goes to the beat of her own drum.
And I think that's where we have to end it. Thank you very much. This is the end of the very first episode of Art Matters with Wayne Quackenbush. Hope to see you soon.